Good morning.
Good morning.
We are live.
Happy Friday.
Thank you for joining us on this Friday morning Coffee Hub, and I'm Cora Dugan with Spark Hub.
And I'm Tanya Teslak. So grab a cup of coffee and let's get right at giving you some good, valuable business and marketing tips.
So today we're going to talk about, what are we going to talk about? The business side of?
Right. So when does a hobby become a business?
Yes. And then we're going to talk about some leadership tips, and I'm going to give you 3 ways to change your leadership walk this morning at your workplace.
So when we talk about when does a business become a hobby, sometimes it's hard to figure that out.
Yes.
Like, do I want to take my business to the next step? Do I not? Can I quit my job? I want to quit my job. And it sounds like a simple question to answer, but that's not always the case. The IRS has rules for what qualifies as a business. So you want to make sure that your entrepreneurial idea is making the cut. So why should you know the difference between a business and a hobby? Well, whether your business is, your venture is a hobby or a business affects your tax liability. So the IRS has rules based on what you can claim, expense, all kinds of that good stuff. Have you ever had a hobby that you thought about taking to a business?
Yes, actually I have. Back in 2012, I wanted to start a business, but I had no idea the amount of work that goes into starting a business. So about 5 years ago when I met Tanya, I realized how much knowledge you have to have in order to start a business. So there's a lot of steps, there's a lot of things that you have to make sure that you have in place when you start a business. And even just starting Spark Hub, Tanya and I, we're still learning. Every day you're still learning. But the key to it all is as you learn, you grow each other and you continue to grow each other. So that's where the leadership is going to play a role into all of this as well. So, maybe you guys could even add some tips to us even that we can learn from. What did you learn when you started your business? What things that you didn't think about in the beginning that now you thought, wow, I didn't know I needed to know that.
Right. And no matter how big your business is, big corporate, they're still learning. Everyone's still learning.
Yeah.
So back to the IRS part of it is if the IRS declares it's a hobby, then you can't deduct business losses and expenses on your tax return. You can only deduct your hobby expenses up to the amount of the income that you actually earn on your hobby. So let me give you an example. Let's say you want to start a t-shirt printing business. You spend $1,000 on a new screen printing press, and in your first year you only make $50 in sales. So the IRS audits you and decides your company is actually a hobby. It is not a business. So hobby loss rules dictate that you can only deduct up to that $50 that you actually earned. So if you deduct business expenses when you're not a real company, you can get some hefty penalties from the IRS. So treating a hobby deduction as a business tax deduction on your return, you get those hefty tax penalties. It can really put a burden on your personal finances.
Yes.
You could end up having to pay back all of those deducted amounts.
Yes.
So is your business a hobby or is it a real business? That's the question that all aspiring entrepreneurs need to answer objectively. So it's one thing to start a business that's really a hobby, but starting a real business, it's a whole other beast.
It is.
Right? So here's what I mean when I talk about starting a real business. So let's use an example. Mike graduated from engineering school and he had a full-time job at a big company. He was on that business fast track, he was getting raises frequently, and his career was in great shape. Then he decided to toss it all away. He quit his job to start his own business. He had very little money saved, and on top of bills, car payments, a mortgage, he didn't have a safety net. Basically, the pressure was on. Nobody was going to bail him out. It was a one-way ticket, and there was no turning back. And for him, this was the real deal. So you might have a similar story about your startup, but are you sure your idea is a business and not a hobby in the eyes of the IRS? So unfortunately, there are no concrete rules for determining if you're operating a hobby or a business. The IRS does say that a business must actively be trying to make a profit. So to prove you're a startup business, you need to be able to show that you're making an effort to turn a profit. So proving your business's intentions, it's not always simple. The most obvious way to meet the IRS's requirements for a business is to actually make a profit. Easier said than done, right? So the first few years are the hardest for small businesses. In fact, over half of new businesses fail within the first 5 years, which is one of the reasons that we aspired to start this business, is to help businesses, because that statistic just, it stuck with me. It bothered me so much.
It's alarming.
Right, because you have an idea, you have a passion for what you want to do, and then there's this whole other, maybe the business side of it, that you're not sure what a P&L, profit and loss statement actually is, or what you should do with it, or how you can even obtain it. So, so back to our sample, Mike. When Mike's partner and he started his business, they didn't have much, but they did have a couple of customers willing to pay them. Over time, some of their buyers became repeat customers, and during their first years, they were scratching to stay in business, and they were flat broke. But since they had some sales with a few bucks coming in, they kept going. Usually, you won't be considered a hobby if you make a profit for 3 out of the first 5 years you are in business. The amount you make can be small, but if you can show the IRS that you made a couple of dollars off your startup, then you should be okay. So proving you're a real business then. Maybe you didn't bring in much money during the first 2 years you were in business. Well, it should still be fine for you to declare business losses on your tax return. But any longer than 2 years without a profit could raise a red flag for an IRS audit. So if you haven't turned a profit in 3 or more years, the IRS might say, you know what, you don't have a business, you actually have a hobby. So, disclaimer, I am not a CPA. Always, always consult a tax accountant, your CPA. They know your personal tax situation, and it's different for everyone. So making money alone isn't enough for the IRS to consider you a business. You need to proactively demonstrate that your business is valid. And one of the most important steps you can take is to record accurate and complete accounting books. You want to keep your records. You want to keep every receipt. If you buy a printer, keep that receipt. My biggest tip that I love to share is, if you're starting out a business and you don't plan to go big, and you don't plan on having a bunch of employees, that still doesn't mean that you shouldn't treat your business like a business. The first thing that you want to do is separate your business and personal finances. Get a separate checking account, savings account, debit card you can put money on, whatever, but separate that from your personal account. If you're a female, it's going to save you a lot of grief with your husband. Save you a lot of fights down the road. But you need to be able to prove your business's income and expenses, and so you do that with documentation. And then you're also going to want to comply with federal, state, and even your local business laws. Every local area, township, or city has, they might have different rules of how your business needs to get started. So don't cut corners when it comes to keeping your business legal. Consult an attorney. They are going to help steer you. Between your attorney and an accountant are going to become your best friends. You're going to want to make sure you have all the permits and insurances and identification numbers that you need. So let's say you're going to go start, you want to go to the bank and get a business checking account. Well, you're going to need to have a federal ID number unless you go sole proprietorship. But again, that is where your accountant is going to help you decide what form or entity that your business will be. because an LLC is really popular right now. It seems
Right.
like everybody's starting an
Yeah.
LLC. That may not be the best choice for your personal tax situation. So, if you're going to show the IRS that you're a legitimate company, you have to act like one.
Right.
And you can also do this by marketing your business. So most businesses use some form of marketing, from free digital marketing for small businesses to $1 million campaigns. You don't need to pour a huge amount of money into your marketing efforts right away.
Right.
But at least have a business card and some advertisements in your community. And if you plan to grow your business, you're going to also want to be a good leader for your team and for your business
Absolutely.
to grow. It's so important. So what do you have for us today, Cora, regarding leadership?
Well, today I'm going to be talking about, I'm going to give you some tips, and leadership. What is leadership? A lot of times people don't really even know what leadership is. They don't recognize it in the workplace. Therefore, if they can't, they don't know how to act out the leadership. So leadership is a process of social influence which maximizes the efforts of others towards the achievement of a goal. So I want you guys to think about, in the workplace, your leaders. I want you guys to start recognizing who your leaders are in the workplace. Leadership is a choice that you make. It's not a position or a job title. Right. So many people think that, oh, well, I'm the big wig here, so I'm the leader, and everyone's to follow me, and that's not how it works. Leadership is so much more than that, because you can make a difference in your workplace, and it takes just small things to do.
You can actually change the environment.
Absolutely. So leadership is, you have to learn how to lead yourself first. That's where it starts, because a lot of people will say, well, you know, I'm not a leader. I don't know what it takes to be a leader. Well, we all started there. We all started there, and we, you know, tried to figure it out, like, well, how do I become better at what I do? You know, one of the first things that you can do is read leadership books. That's where you can start. One of my favorites is John Maxwell. I've just about read every book that he's written. He has a book here that's called The 360-Degree Leader. It starts with identifying what leadership is. It starts with breaking down the steps of how to become a better leader, and then it ends with how to lead your team at the workplace. So if you guys want a copy of this book, we'd be more than happy to send you that. So if you want to message us, and I know last week I said DM. A lot of people don't know what DM is. So DM is direct message. So basically just message us on the page, direct message. So if you ever hear me say that, you can, you know, contact us through there, and we'll send you that book for free.
And how many books are you sending?
You know what? How about 5? I feel generous today.
All right. All right.
So we will send you.
Well, because leadership is so important.
It is so crucial to your workplace in developing yourself and developing your team.
Right.
Because just like what Tanya said, if you want to start a business, you have to take it to a whole new level. You have to take yourself to a whole new level.
Right.
And you're constantly developing yourself. Tanya and I we're always edifying each other. We're always building each other up, and we're always making sure that our leadership, along with our laughs, is always being, you know, people can see that in us.
and part of being a leader is, you know, you have to be real. Like,
yes.
You know, you got a job to do. You have business to get done, but you have to be able to enjoy your workplace.
Yes.
Your work environment.
So another thing that I want to point out is, what's the difference between managers versus leaders that work in your workplace? So managers work with processes. Leaders work with developing and empowering people.
Right.
That's how you recognize the difference of people's skill sets. Mm-hmm. It's not that managers can't become leaders, they can.
Right.
It's just where they're at in their workplace. Everybody has room to grow. Everybody does. So it's much more than management. All right, so let's go to, so now I want to give you three tips on how you can change your workplace and how you can be a better leader and lead yourself.
Even if you're not in a leadership position.
Exactly. You don't have to be in a leadership position. Number one is, I'm going to challenge you guys. I want you guys to give 3 compliments a day, every day for the next 7 days, and watch how the dynamics change in your workplace. Whether it be, hey, you know, nice haircut. Hey, like that shirt. Hey, oh, your shoes are really spot on. Whatever it is, just change the atmosphere. That's leadership.
Just be careful you don't get into the sexual harassment.
Yeah,
wall.
don't do that. Don't do that. Another great tip is when you recognize your leaders in the workplace, build them up. Edify them in front of others. It speaks volumes when you do that. People see that and people like that and people are attracted to that and they want more of it. Number 3, caring. Just be genuinely caring. Just come up to somebody, say, hey buddy, what's up? How you doing?
Love you,
How was your weekend? Whatever it is. And if you recall a conversation with that person, go back and revisit. Just show them you care. That's it. That's all it takes. It's very simple things that you can do in the workplace.
Just again, be appropriate in your...
This is coming from someone that has 20 years of HR experience. This is why I absolutely love her leadership, because she recognizes always the right thing to do when it's the right time to do it.
Well, you have to be careful because some environments are, so if you are in a nonprofit organization,
Yes.
it's probably a little more, you know, so it's going to be a little more encouraging and huggy, but,
Yeah.
you know, if you're in a corporate environment, you know, you're probably going to want to keep that, you know, 2 or 3 foot personal space
Yeah.
rule. And you can still say, hey, you know, great job on, thanks for helping me out with that project, or, you know, thanks for grabbing me some
Encouragement.
paper
Yes,
from my
encouragement.
printer. Things that you wouldn't always think to say, go ahead and just say.
Yes, yes.
Don't be afraid to give someone
Yes.
a compliment.
Very good. Well, we hope that you guys enjoyed this live video this morning. And again, message us, DM us, direct message us, and we will send you a copy of John Maxwell's 360-Degree Leader.
And if you're looking for, if you're starting up a business and anything that we've talked about today have raised any questions, feel free to reach out to us. We'd be more than happy to give you some more tips, get you started in the right direction so that you can get your best foot off.
Yes, yes. Okay, guys, we will see you next Friday.
Bye.
Bye.